The information contained in the SSI Spotlight series is designed for and intended for use by the NCAA membership. The webinar content represents the views and opinions of the participants and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of the NCAA. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The NCAA does not make any representations or warranties with respect to the accuracy of the content, nor is the content intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. The webinar is intended for personal viewing only and may not be recorded.
Hey everybody, this is Charlie Baker from the NCAA. Welcome to the latest edition of SSI's Spotlight series. I'm going to start today by introducing all of you to Dr. Deena Casiero, who is the new CMO of the NCAA. And she has a long and distinguished background in both health and medicine and in college sports. She graduated with a degree in athletic training from Springfield College in Massachusetts, whoop whoop, and went on to earn a medical degree from New York Medical College, and we managed to talk her into leaving her position as the head team physician at UConn to come become the CMO of the NCAA. She brings an enormous amount of real-world experience, campus-based experience at schools big and small in both the athletic training and the medical space to this work and to this job. And honestly, given the importance of our relationship to the campus community generally, I can't think of a better person to lead the charge in this space going forward than her. Deena, the floor is yours.
Well, I appreciate that, President Baker. Thank you so much for that kind introduction. I certainly am really excited as I think about collaborating with the membership and applying my experience, as you mentioned, as a head athletic trainer, as a head team physician, to the work that we do in our department. As I look to my vision for SSI and as my role as CMO, I really look for ways to improve that connectivity between the membership and the work of this department. I really want to make sure that as the landscape of collegiate athletics changes, that we too remain flexible in the way we listen to the membership. What do you all need? What areas are you looking for more support, more guidance, more resources in? And making sure that we look for ways to deliver that information in a real meaningful and an efficient way. I think for sure mental health will always be a top priority for us in our department. We're also really excited to bring and apply this harm reduction strategy as we think about the way we worked with cannabinoids and removing it from the banned substance list, but shifting the focus towards meeting athletes where they're at and giving them more information and more education around that substance so that they can make informed decisions about what they do. That harm reduction strategy, I think, is going to be really applicable to other areas.
So cannabinoids, I can never say that word the right way, do we consider that to be a performance enhancing drug?
Yeah, no, we don't. And
Right.
That was one of the main reasons it was removed from the list. And even though we don't and therefore don't test for it anymore, we really do think that there's still value in educating.
100%.
Right?
Yep.
So that student athletes understand what they're doing when they put different substances in their body. So
Now, as somebody who's worked both big campuses and small campuses, UConn being your last stop before here, talk a little bit about the difference there, because you have expressed a big desire to be cognizant of the issues that people are dealing with across all three divisions, and in some respects, virtual opportunities to engage like this one make it possible to talk to much bigger audiences and to listen to them as well. But I'd be curious to know how you think about how your experience generally will help you in that.
yeah, no, I think just having been boots on the ground and having actually worked at a Division III school as an athletic trainer, a Division I school as a head team physician, the resources, the difference in what different campuses struggle with. I think me having lived through those experiences will help in the way I help our department deliver resources. And so it's delivered through that lens of understanding that you can't simply give one solution for all of the membership. It really is a lot more nuanced than that. And I believe it makes me a little bit more relatable as I talk to the membership about different issues, because I think that they might look at me and say, you know, she gets it, she understands, she's
Walked in those shoes.
Exactly.
So talk a little bit about how the Spotlight Series might be something that you can use to both learn from and engage the membership. We did a fair amount of this stuff in the mental health space and the health and well-being space, but you've also talked about wanting to use it to engage campuses in a conversation about performance tools like Whoop, which I wear.
That's right.
I don't wear it for performance purposes. I wear it to make sure I actually sleep at night. But I'd be curious to know kind of what your thoughts are about that one, because that is really a hot topic on a lot of campuses, and it's also a really hot topic among young people.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think so. First of all, the SSI Spotlight Series is a wonderful way to get the membership talking to each other about what are you doing in this space.
Yeah, the learning opportunities.
Exactly, right.
Across campus are huge.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then when it comes to the performance technologies, this is something that's taking off across campuses all over the country. It is a little bit like the wild, wild west out there in terms of the number of devices.
We believe in the wild, wild west here at the NCAA.
We do. And really, truly, it's about that responsible use of that data, right? So you have the one hand, you have all these technologies and what are we using them for and what are we tracking? But then you have this whole conversation about where is that data stored and who owns that data and who can access that data. Yep. And that's the part that I'm really excited to get the experts together in the room so we can start talking about putting together some guidance and some education for the membership in this space.
I think that's a great opportunity for shared learning, because there are people who've had real world experiences using all sorts of technology on campus and probably have a lot of points of view about it at this point.
That's exactly right. And as we talk about the SSI Spotlight, I think this is a perfect segue. So thank you so much, President Baker, for this kind introduction
Charlie,
and this time with you today.
Charlie,
I know. Behind the scenes, I call him Charlie, but I figured for here, I would call you President Baker. But I do appreciate.
Thank you very much, Doctor. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Just call me Deena. So perfect segue as we turn to our first SSI Spotlight series of the year, where we're going to continue our conversation about the health and safety space and learn a little bit more about our Competitive Safeguards Committee. I am now joined by Nadine Mastrolio, the chair of the NCAA Committee on Competitive Safeguards and Medical Aspect of Sport, commonly referred to as CSMAS, to discuss the committee's work to promote student-athlete mental and physical health, safety, and performance. But before we get to today's guest, I'd like to take a minute to thank you all for joining today's session as we relaunch our SSI Spotlight series. As members of the student-athlete care team from across the membership, be it as designated administrators, athletic trainers, team physicians, mental health counselors, coaches, and more, you all stand at the forefront of safeguarding the mental and physical well-being of collegiate athletes. And the SSI Spotlight Series was developed to help support you in this pivotal role. We are excited to continue to bring you new additions that focus on various areas that will help you excel in the care that you provide your student athletes. As a reminder, all the previous SSI Spotlight recordings are available on our NCAA Resources YouTube channel. There you'll find multiple sessions on student-athlete mental health, cannabinoids, concussion, safety protocols, and more. So if you missed any of those, please go back and check them out. Today's session is going to highlight the role and current work of CSMAS to promote and protect student-athlete health, safety, and performance. The committee's mission is to provide expertise and leadership to the association in order to promote a healthy and safe environment for student athletes through research, education, collaboration, and policy development. I've actually had the privilege of sitting and serving on CSMAS in multiple roles, first as chair of the drug testing subcommittee, and then most recently as the vice chair, right before I stepped into the CMO role. So I am particularly excited about today's session, as it provides us with an opportunity to champion the great work of this amazing committee. And who better to talk about the work of this committee than the current chair, Nadine Mastrolio, professor of psychology at Binghamton University. Nadine, welcome. We are so excited to have you. Can you please provide an introduction for the audience and tell us a little bit about yourself, including your role on campus at Binghamton and your role with CSMAS?
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Deena. What a great opportunity to let the membership know all the amazing work that's being done at CSMAS. So as you mentioned, I'm a professor of psychology in the clinical science area at Binghamton University. I also get to actually be the faculty athletics rep. So I've been serving as the FAR on campus. This is my 7th year now. And so I get to have a foot in the door of athletics in some capacity while also working on campus, as a regular faculty member working in the psychology area. So, just a quick piece of information beyond the real honor of being the chair and serving CSMAS that way. My background is in substance use, right? I serve as the drug education expert on CSMAS. This is actually my 5th year as a member of CSMAS. I got an extra year when I was moved into the chair role after you were promoted and given the position of CMO. But my background is really in athletics in many ways. I was a Division I college women's basketball player. I coached Division I women's basketball for a number of years before I moved into a drug and education counseling role and then pursued academics. So I kind of bring a very full 360 round perspective, from the athlete perspective, the coaching perspective, and then somebody who does work in the area of drug education for student athletes. So thanks so much for letting me be a part of the conversation today.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I agree. Your well-rounded perspective really brings so much to the committee. So we really appreciate that. So Nadine, let's start with you sort of giving us your idea of an overview of CSMAS. And from your perspective, what is the general role and purpose of this committee?
Yeah, I think you set it off really well when you kind of described the overarching work kind of that we do. Ultimately, our mission statement's a great direction for us. It offers us a really important framing around the impact of offering expertise, right? Offering leadership to the association. And as it specifically focuses on promoting the health and safety of our student athletes across the membership. What's fantastic, I think, about this group is it really does represent all 3 divisions. So it's not one division alone that we're focused on. We have representation from across all 3 divisions at very different ways. And I know we'll talk about that probably in a little bit, but I think of our role as promoting and helping to really develop new research in areas that focus on the health and safety of our athletes. Obviously education, right? That's a big piece of what we do as you kind of look through the CSMAS and the SSI website. But we also focus a little bit on, making sure that we're always paying attention to banned substances and the potential impact it has on student athletes, areas of injury surveillance. And then, again, as you mentioned, the overarching idea of health and safety, as well as performance of the student athletes, and also making sure that things are fair and equitable across the board. And that kind of is an underlying theme around all the conversations we have at our many meetings across the board.
Earlier, you mentioned that this is one of the association-wide committees, meaning it covers all 3 divisions. Can you talk to the audience a little bit about the types of people that serve on CSMAS?
Yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned, we have a wide range of backgrounds and professions. I think there's 25 members at this point. It's made up of people like me who are faculty members, a number of FARs. We have student athletes. We have a representative from each division for a student athlete representation. We have athletic trainers. We have folks that specialize in nutrition. Obviously, we have with college administrators. Between athletic directors and SWAs and various kind of ranges across the line. And then obviously we also have physicians, because so much of the work that we're doing really impacts the safety and the health of our athletes. We would be kind of ill-represented if we didn't have coaches as a part of this conversation. So we really do have an exceptionally kind of broad reach of people that have touch points of athletics and bring in different experience, which I think makes, like you mentioned, the conversation's fantastic, because everybody's seeing it through their lens and their experiences on campus. And in doing so, all of us have been really open to those conversations in ways that people are allowed to and encouraged to bring up opinions and maybe differing viewpoints from things so that we can really kind of come to a decision point and feel really good that we did our due diligence to really understand it from all the different perspectives from the people in the room.
That's exactly right. And the diversity of the committee is so important and is evidenced by, as you mentioned, people mentioning in the middle of a conversation during a CSMAS meeting, they may say, well, I don't know how coaches are going to feel about this, or let's talk about how Division III is going to feel about this, right? So having that diverse representation really allows for pretty powerful conversations. So as we talk about the diversity of the committee, how can folks in the membership find and connect with the colleagues that they have that are represented on CSMAS?
Yeah, it's actually pretty easy, to be honest. The SSI website has, a link to CSMAS, CSMAS. We try to make everything flow with words. So CSMAS or CSMAS. And then in there is our roster with access points to our email addresses and contact information. As I mentioned, that representation, if you're an athletic trainer at a school, there is a number of athletic trainers serving on our committee. If that seems like the right person or the easiest person to contact, their information is available. If you're a faculty member and you're an FAR and you're really interested in a specific aspect of the work that we're doing, and it feels easier to reach out to a fellow FAR, we're all available via email that way too. So, and that roster is updated as people roll on and off of the committee. So you'll always have access to our contact information and being able to reach out to us. And we obviously welcome that. I actually have gotten a number of emails in the last month or two since rolling into the chair position, and they've been people asking me, how do I get involved in CSMAS? So it's been fantastic to see the interest and the work that, all the SSI staff and everybody is really trying to make sure people understand the resources that we have available to the membership.
That's great. And I think that highlights one of the reasons why we wanted to do an SSI spotlight on this. We don't want people to think that folks that serve on CSMAS are sort of hidden behind a curtain and are unreachable. We want people to know that the whole purpose of this committee is to be in touch with the membership and be in touch with what's going on, be open to hearing questions and areas that CSMAS ought to be looking at. So I think reminding folks that this list is available on the website is quite important. So Nadine, recently we highlighted on an SSI Spotlight the mental health best practices, an industry-leading document that was led by CSMAS to provide this framework, right, for providing mental health services for student athletes across the membership. So can you talk to us about some other examples of recent efforts that the committee has done to promote student athlete health, safety, and performance?
Yeah, and I think you mentioned this earlier when we started our conversation. The work that I've been very closely tied to is the cannabinoid issue, and as I think back on what that conversation looked like and how we got to where we are today on legislation and policy-based things, it wasn't a short road. It was my second year maybe on CSMAS. I had a side conversation with the outgoing chair and the incoming chair about, do we think we want to look at this? And then we had some inquiry from the membership asking us to take a better look at it. We started doing that, as you know, because you were the chair of the drug testing subcommittee at the time. And I was as one of the members of that subcommittee. We had lots of conversations, realized that there's a lot of things we need to learn more about with cutting edge research. So, I think super forward thinking. We held, to me, what I will honestly say is probably one of my best professional experiences, a cannabinoid summit, which was a day and a half, which I realize as a drug education person, that does seem normal. As a regular person, that might seem pretty not exciting for the average person, but it was a fantastic day and a half of meetings and learning about every aspect of how cannabinoids has the potential to impact student athletes. After the meeting, we came together, have some statements that came out of that meeting that we were able to consolidate with all the text and all of the knowledge that we gained. Those statements then were, pushed around to the membership, right? Offered that as kind of making sure people understood what we were gaining. Then we had more conversations about policy, ultimately, you and I, we sat on a panel last year at the NCAA convention talking a little about where the state of the field might be and the reason to suggest removing it as a banned substance. And then ultimately the membership voted, they made their decisions. And now we're really in the education phase of that. So if you think of that long trajectory of a couple years, we're in a position now where we're really helping student athletes that are potentially struggling with use versus, penalizing. And it really comes from an education perspective. So, I'm so proud of that work that you spearheaded and that we all pulled together, because that to me is a perfect example of how our committee works. And we do that for lots of topics, right? This isn't the first topic that we've been able to have the chance to do on. And there's other things we're working on too, right? There's performance technology things we're working on. We've started some slight conversations on sports betting and some other things too, to understand how is this impacting our student athletes so that we're sort of in the front of it versus trying to play catch up, if you will.
Yeah, that's great. I definitely want to echo a couple of your comments. First and foremost, I think that example that you talked about where the drug testing subcommittee said, hey, we recognize that we have some experts on this subcommittee, but we don't feel like we have enough information to answer the questions that are being asked of us, of the membership. The subcommittee had the wherewithal to say, we need more information. And we sort of paused our conversations and we asked for that. And SSI staff got together this amazing summit. And I agree with you. It was also for me, one of the most professionally satisfying conferences I'd ever been a part of, just to see the experts in that space talk about this important information and just bring everything together in one place. It was really, really powerful. So I think it highlights an element of CSMAS that people might not recognize. So I appreciate you bringing that up. And then the piece about the harm reduction strategies. I mean, we are seeing it work so well in the cannabinoid space that this kind of leads into my next question, which you partly answered in your answer to your last question about future work. What other areas is CSMAS looking towards? And, I think that harm reduction space, expanding that is part of that. I wasn't sure if you had anything more to add in terms of future direction.
One that I know is pretty near and dear to your heart is the athletic training workforce issue. That has been a conversation since I joined CSMAS, and it is ongoing. And I suspect, I know that you've had a lot of conversations about impacts of the workforce availability and quality of life and things. And I don't know if you have other pieces that you might want to share around on the directions that we're going in that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Obviously this is an area near and dear to my heart, having been an athletic trainer prior to being a team physician and just having worked so closely with that profession throughout my entire career. Seeing the struggles that the profession is going through is something that is important to us, important to me, important to SSI, and even important to Charlie, our president. He's actually put it in his goals for next year to continue to work with the membership to help support them. And so when I look at what we can do, obviously this is a complicated problem. It's multifactorial. It's very specific to individual environments on campus. But one of the things that I'm excited about is a future SSI Spotlight series on this exact topic, where we can invite individuals who have either seen methods work on their campuses or methods not work on their campuses. And let's get together and let's talk about it and let's share ideas and let's learn from each other. I think we started a little bit of this during COVID, where we sort of went like, why should we have to reinvent the wheel when we can just learn what our neighbors are doing in this space? And so I think one way we can help is to bring the membership together and make it easier to have those conversations to kind of talk about this stuff. So I appreciate you bringing that up. So let's shift gears for a second and discuss how folks in the membership can stay connected to the work of the committee. So CSMAS meets 4 times a year. And each time they meet, they have a robust agenda of items to talk about. So how can folks stay connected with what's coming out of these CSMAS meetings?
Yeah, it's what I really appreciate about what the staff do and the marketing folks and all the PR people that you have there. all of the information we talk about is sent out pretty quickly with highlights of the topics that we talked about. I know I get them as an email as an FAR on my campus. So I suspect other people are also getting those emails, and hopefully it seems valuable to read them, because I think the highlights of our work are always so well documented. The website is fantastic. I've gone back in there myself as a member of the committee to kind of take a look at some of the press releases and things to make sure that I'm on point with all of the smaller parts that I maybe hadn't been as kind of specifically involved in before I moved into the chair role. The SSI Spotlight I've actually watched all of them with the exception of the one that I did last year. Because I'm not going to watch.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that.
I'm not going to watch my own, but you watched it, so
it was great.
So I think those I learned so much through those, and you really, as a kind of a nerdy faculty, I get to see who the people are in those areas, so that if I want to look at more information, I can kind of look up those folks and see what other work they're doing outside of that spotlight. So, I think honestly our website is an exceptional resource. Mental health practices in there, all the information about cannabinoids, there's information on nutrition in there, which I've used and given to my campus when we've been looking for more specific information about nutrition resources. So I do think, and I know that that's always hard to say, well, go to the website, but it is really very full, and it's updated, and all of the FAQs that any question you have related to something health and safety is probably in an FAQ document on the website. And, if you don't find what you're looking for, that's what the roster's for. Email us and ask us, maybe there's some directions that we can point people into. So, and I would encourage folks to go back and watch those Spotlight series because they're really fantastically, and they're well done. So.
That's great. I'm glad you feel that way. We're really excited to be up and running with them again. Lots of great content to come. So appreciate that. So this has been great and really informative, Nadine. But before we wrap up, I would love to ask you just one last question. And that is, what do you wish that people knew about this committee?
Well, I love that question. I think I really wish people, I wish they could almost be a fly in the wall and watch our meetings in some ways, so they could see the true care and concern that every member, including the staff, honestly, have for our student athletes, so that they could get a sense of the true hard work and the efforts being put in by everybody across the board. While it seems like it's extra work, I'll be very honest, this is the favorite thing I do in my professional career right now. Maybe I shouldn't have said that on a recording, but it is.
We won't tell Binghamton. We won't tell Binghamton.
I've said that to my athletic director. This is the best professional experience I've had. And it's because of the way in which the meetings really move the needle on making sure that we are up to date on all the newest things we need to know. And in truth, kind of trying to predict a little bit about the things coming down the pike for us to be more preventative, more ahead of the game, instead of feeling like we have to play catch up. So to me, I do wish that people had the chance to observe some of the work that we do, because the work that we do is fantastic, and it is not easy stuff. We have really challenging and important conversations, but we always end in a place that we know that the decision points are in the best interest of the student athletes. So, I just feel lucky that I get to be a part of the conversations, to be honest with you, and that the people that I've met as a part of this committee have really become lifelong colleagues, to be honest. So I feel really that people won't see that necessarily behind the scenes, but I think the work that you're doing and helping us get the word out, I think will make a huge difference for the membership, to be honest with you.
Thank you so much for that, Nadine. My answer to this question is very similar, and that really is about the professional satisfaction that I got from serving on this committee. I think that committees get a bad rap sometimes, right? We've all served on a ton of committees. Some of them feel like time sucks, or we just really aren't feeling like we're getting that much personal or professional satisfaction from that committee. And advice that I received when I was first asked to be on this committee from the chair at the time was that this will be the most professionally satisfactory committee you'll serve on. And she was 1,000% right. And then also, I recently ran into a past CSMAS member who just rolled off the committee at our last meeting. And she cornered me here at the national office and actually said that she feels like there's a hole, in her life, not serving on this committee anymore. And I think that that speaks to the sort of power of this committee and the relationships that people develop. And so I think, that sort of gives an idea in a nutshell of what CSMAS is all about. So thank you so much, Nadine, for joining us today. And thank you so much to the audience for tuning in. I do want to remind you all to watch your emails for instructions on receiving a certificate of completion if one is needed for continuing education purposes. This is something that we got a lot of inquiries about last time, and we were able to actually bring that to fruition. So we're hopeful that you all will take advantage of those certificates of completion. I'll remind you that registration for our next session is now open, so look for more information in the chat on that. Our next session will actually focus on screening and testing to identify problematic cannabis use as part of a harm reduction strategy on campus. So really looking forward to that. And as another reminder, you can always email ssi@ncaa.org for any questions or suggestions that you might have. But thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to seeing you on our next SSI Spotlight.